All right, everybody. Welcome to the Creative Mike podcast. I am your host, Creative Mike. And today we have a special guest on here with us. His name is Ashton Palmer. Ashton is a realtor out of Manhattan, New York. He's currently in sub 2, and he went ahead and took action. A lot of people don't do. He ended up with a deal, and that's why we're here today. So, Ashton, if you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
So I am currently based in New York City. I work as a real estate agent at a firm called Sirhan, and I've been an agent in the city for going on 5 years now. I've always kind of been on obviously the brokerage side of things when it comes to just working with buyers and sellers, basically just helping with the transaction. One of the things that I have always wanted, probably even back in high school, is like one day I want to invest in real estate. But one thing you learn as going through school and everything else is that you never really learn it exactly, different strategies to do so. It always seemed like a distant goal that was kind of hard to attain. And then I just happened to be watching YouTube videos about investing in real estate and trying to find ways to get into it without having to, for one, use your own money. For one, because New York City is super expensive, so my money goes to just trying to survive half the time. I no longer wanted to only be like a service provider, if that makes sense. So, long story short, I came across Pace Morby on YouTube and immediately was hooked by what he was teaching and some of the strategies he was teaching about how he got into real estate investing. Ultimately, like, that's what I want to do, is build a legacy for my future kids. I don't have any kids yet, but one day that's the ultimate goal, is to be able to pass something down to them. I eventually just joined sub 2. I went all in. So I looked at it as an opportunity that is definitely going to pay off. That's how I kind of looked at it this whole time. And it already has started paying off. And I've only been in sub 2 since May. So about 2 months now.
Wow. Okay.
Which is crazy. Like, yeah. It just goes to show that if you do take action on the things you're learning, it works out. Honestly, taking action is sometimes the hardest thing to do.
What you did to the audience is he actually reached out to me because he's seen some of my posts and some of my videos, and he figured out, hey, listen, I'm new at this. I am going to joint venture my first deal. I'm not going to try to do it on my own. And I think that's what everybody should definitely do. Whether you're a newbie or you are in real estate, it doesn't matter, because there's so many facets of real estate. And what we're doing right now is a little bit different than, let's say, your traditional sale. The audience obviously would love to know, how did you get your deal? What system did you use? Why did you choose that route? Why did you choose that system? You can kind of walk us through your process just a little bit, which direction you took, why you took that direction, and what system did you use to acquire your first good lead that turned into a contract.
Being a real estate agent, one way I've really built my business here in the city is going after expired listings. That has always kind of been my go-to. Here in the city, I've done over $20 million in personal sales off of expired listings alone. So, as I got into the investing side of things and trying to find deals, I realized that I should probably stick with a niche that I'm very familiar with and a list that I know how to work and I know how to talk to these kind of sellers. So that's why I decided to go after expired listings. I'm here in New York. However, I'm from Florida originally, and I have a lot of family down in the Tampa area. So I figured, maybe I will target Florida as the market that I want to go after. Properties are a lot cheaper down there, so it's easier to invest in those properties, and usually the cap rates are a lot higher than what you'll get here in New York. That's why I chose that market, and started going after expireds. And I go after leads 2 different ways. The first way is cold calling, which is definitely the hardest, but I used to be kind of scared to cold call, like most people are. Yeah. It is intimidating at times, but eventually, once you get hung up on enough and once you have enough people cuss you out, then you kind of become numb to it. And at the end of the day, if you really think about it, they don't know who you are. You shouldn't take it personal, for one, because they have no idea who you are. They have no idea what you look like. So they just hear a random voice, and if they don't want to talk to it, they're just going to hang up. So once I kind of instilled that, I was like, who cares if someone gets mad at me? It's not like they really know me anyways. And, I'm used to cold calling as a real estate agent also. So having that muscle really helped me start really knocking out cold calls and taking action immediately. As soon as I got the education around like creative financing and everything like that and how to explain it to sellers, I just started cold calling like crazy. I've had great conversations through cold calling, which led to me getting emails that I can then follow up with people. But this first deal that you and I worked on together, I had called him, left him a voice message, but I also ended up sending him an email as well. And he got back to me through email after I put him on an email campaign in my CRM that I use. Him and I hopped on the phone call, just him and I for the first phone call. And then when I realized that he was a qualified lead, that's when I connected him with you, and us three hopped on the phone together. I JV'd on this deal, and I plan to JV on a lot more deals moving forward, because when you're first new to learning how to do creative finance and working in the investment space, it can be difficult, it can be challenging. So it's good to have people there that can help guide you and help you really get the deal across the finish line, because if you can't get it across the finish line, then you're making $0. But at least if you are partnering and JVing with people, you still can make a good amount of money.
You're also expanding your horizons, you're expanding your knowledge, you're seeing the whole process from start to finish as well, right? You're seeing all the issues that come up, all the questions that sellers have in the beginning and the middle and at the end of the process. So it really allows you to learn from start to finish how the transaction works. You are a realtor, so use a system that required you to have an MLS, right? So that system that you used was called Vulcan 7, correct? Vulcan 7, for the audience, it allows you to get access to expired listings within your MLS area. So you do have to have MLS access. You can also partner with a realtor like yourself.
I'm licensed in New York. I'm not licensed in Florida. So in order to get access to the MLS that then connects to Vulcan 7 where they pull the data, I had to partner with an agent in Florida to get their MLS information. One of the biggest things for that agent that I partnered with, it's very simple to potentially work with them and for them to give you their information for the MLS. All you need to do is say, listen, if none of these leads work for me, I would love to refer you to them, because a lot of these leads that you recall, especially if you're going after expireds, they may not want to go the creative route when it comes to selling, but what they may want to do is go back on the market with a different agent. So all you got to do is partner with an agent in whatever market you want to work in and just say, hey, if I can have access to your MLS, then how about if there's any leads that definitely want to go back on the market and they don't want to sell creatively, I will refer them to you to potentially be the listing agent. That's what I did. The agent I partnered with down there, he loved that, and he easily was just like, yeah, let's partner together, and feel free to send me any referrals.
I really like what you said about passing off referrals to the agent, the ones that you cannot do yourself, whether it's subject to a seller financing. That way, the agent, by just helping you out, giving you access to their MLS, now they could potentially get a few deals underneath their belt without really trying, by just partnering up with someone like yourself that's taking action, that's wanting to stay active. Hats off to you for doing that. And you did exactly what I just said, partner up with somebody, right? Which is exactly what you did. And because of what you did, you ended up getting a client, a lot of education from this. We ended up closing and ending the deal. The funny thing about this deal was the seller had this house that he was selling, but he separated the property into two separate parcels, right? He had the house with one parcel, and then he had a separate lot. However, both were tied to the one underlying mortgage note. And so we had to be creative and figure out how can we help the seller out by separating the parcels, which he already said that he already had separated, which we found out that it wasn't separated legally yet. We assisted him in separating the lots legally, so now we had two parcels, and we were able to create a second agreement stating that when the property is sold, the seller is gifted his land, which is the separate parcel, back. So not only was this a creative deal, we had to be extremely creative to even get the deal. That's where also experience comes in, right? And that's where you also have to think outside the box, because you can't think of just, regular traditional financing, because in this case, we had to be super creative. And luckily, we were able to go ahead and make the seller happy, make the buyer happy, make the transaction work as a whole. We were able to take the deal to the finish line. And so the deal, if everybody wants to know, was in Clearwater, Florida. Nice home. It was on a big lot, A lot of buyers wanted this property, right? A lot of offers coming through, right?
That was pretty awesome to see, especially for my first deal. It can be a little scary, getting your first deal in the contract and not really knowing if we're going to be able to find a buyer for it or anything like that. Just because I hadn't had that proof of concept for myself yet. I've seen other people do it, but until you do it yourself, you just never know. When we started getting as much activity as we did, I was like, wow, this actually works. This is freaking awesome.
Yeah, and we were able to lock it up really fast. We had 2 buyers. We had to decide which buyer we were going to go with, right? We decided on actually a buyer that is also a sub-2 member. We kind of gave the buyer first dibs, right? It took probably maybe 30, 35 days tops on it. We ended up funding the deal. Everything went well at the end. Our assignment fee was a little bit over $10,000, I believe, on this one. So you ended up getting a nice wire. Contact you, say, hey, Ashton, send me your wiring instructions, right? And you're like, oh, is this deal done? And I'm like, yeah, it's done. And you're like, whoa, I didn't know it was done.
There's so many moving parts that one, I wasn't even privy to at moments, just because there was just literally so much going on with trying to figure out how to make this transaction work. But hey, maybe it will mean that each one after this will be a little bit easier, but that's sometimes also not always the case.
Yeah, no, I would never ever think of it that way, because even the ones that may look easy and start off easy, there's always something at the end.
You learn from each one, so that's what
So from your experience, what would you tell everybody right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you're definitely wanting to get into the real estate investing space, I highly recommend joining Sub2. Again, it is not a course that you take. And there are aspects where there is a lot of learning, but it really is a community. Everyone truly cares about helping each other succeed. I've joined other masterminds and courses and groups before in the past where I invested money into joining them, and they did not pan out, and I did not get my money back out of it. However, again, I've only been in Sub2 for a little over 2 months, and I've already made quite a bit of the money that I put into it back. I already have that proof of concept, which is really the biggest piece, because once you have that, then you have the confidence to keep pushing forward and learning more and more and more and doing more and more deals. So I highly recommend anyone that's listening to this that hasn't joined or doesn't know much about Sub2, I highly recommend going to learn, because it's definitely something that if you take action on the things that you can learn and you really take time to build the right relationships in this community, you will succeed. You can't fail if you do those things, if you're taking action daily and you're building the right relationships that are going to help you succeed. When it comes to JVing with somebody, that is the most important thing to your success, especially right out the gate. It's easy to get bogged down in figuring out how to do this, how to do that for every single transaction, especially at first when you're brand new, but to have someone that you can lean on, to bounce ideas on, to work problems with, that will help you succeed and get deals done that may seem like they won't get done. This deal is a perfect example of that. If I were to do this myself and I never brought this to Mike, it wouldn't have been done. Again, take the time to learn. Right now, early, when you're just now starting in all of this, the most important thing is your education and getting the experience under your belt, because that's how you really grow.
How can somebody get in touch with you?
I check my Instagram all the time. That's where I communicate with a lot of people. My Instagram username is Ashton X Palmer. So ASHTONX PALMER. And then I also have a YouTube channel as well for real estate. Lately, it's been a lot of like YouTube tours here in Manhattan, but I am starting to build out like the investing side of things and creative finance, because I want it to be both entertainment with some of the properties we get here in Manhattan and some of the listings that I work on, but also educational as well from the investing side of things. And as I learn, I'm going to be putting that out for others to hopefully learn. So feel free to go subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can just type in Ashton Palmer. I really appreciate you having me on, and I'm looking forward to doing many more deals together.
And I'm sure you guys could probably learn a lot from him as well. Now, the one thing that I do want to say before we end our conversation here, Ashton, is I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for trusting me and putting your deal in my hands and allowing me to show you and take it from start to finish. But I also want to thank Pace Morby, because without Pace Morby, none of this would be possible. I would not have met you. I would not have been part of Sub2, and I would not have gained the knowledge that I have gained since joining Sub2. Thank you, Ashton. Thank you for being here, and looking forward to working with you again.